Look at Bruno, we're live. You have your Kill business suit on today. Look at that. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my live stream. We are finally finishing up ripping apart this jacket, but I wanted to see what it looked like on Bruno before. He even got a nice little shirt on today. Ready to take it off? Okay, let's take off your jacket. There you go. All better? Do you want to go lay down? Oops. It's stuck to your Velcro. Welcome, Yanalith. Thank you for joining us. All right, Bruno, you want to come sit here? Take your jacket. Okay. Last week on Tuesday, we ripped out the lining. It is now in shreds in a bag. So, yay. Bruno, please don't cry. Okay? You good? I will give you attention when I'm done, okay? Anyways, last week we ripped out the lining. And we still have a whole jacket to rip apart. Because you don't necessarily need a lining for a jacket. Other than the edges being unfinished, this is a functioning jacket. Okay, I ripped out, like the edges really just need to be finished. What do I mean? Here, I brought a few different jackets. This jacket, no lining whatsoever, but the edges are all finished. There's no raw edges. As you get further and further from the center where you're less likely to see the seams, you see raw serger edges, but that's still a finished edge. So this jacket and this jacket have the exact same seams. But this one looks nasty because none of the edges are finished. See all these threads that are just coming off? Those are just naturally happens with fabric. That's why you have to finish your edges or give it a lining. So just wanted to kind of point that out. So I'm going to turn this whole thing inside out. Kind of orient where everything is. So these are the shoulder pads. And they were attaching the lining to the jacket with these little tabs. I didn't count these as a piece yet because they're still attached to the jacket. They are sewn in the same seam as the shoulder pads themselves. So when I rip this out, we'll get into that. This facing piece was sewn in with the lining, so I had to kind of start those seams to get the lining out. So makes me wonder what order of operations the lining was attached. This was probably attached in that same seam because looking at it, that's right where it split, is right where I stopped ripping. Makes sense. I like seeing all the little notches and little cuts because you think nothing of this. So you think, oh, that's just a sloppy thing going on right there. But that makes it possible to have this really sharp, clean corner. If you don't trim your corners, cut out the excess bulk and notch it, all the pieces so that they line up. Look how many different pieces of fabric have to meet up in this seam right here in order for this lapel to line up and fold cleanly right here at the neckline. And that's all right here up in your shoulder area, and you don't want too much bulk there. So the little teeny tiny details, like first of all, notching it, and then they trim back all the excess and layers. Lots of little tiny details that make really big differences. And they pressed as they sewed, and you can tell. It makes the whole process significantly easier when you do that. All right, what piece should I remove first? I think I want to start pockets. Yeah, I'll rip off the little excess details. And then I'll go for shoulder pads, and then I'll rip it apart from there. Okay, pockets first, inside or outside? I love it. This pocket is still sewn shut. I kind of ripped most of them open, but this one's still shut. When you buy a suit, the pockets are sewn shut, so you have to rip them open. It's part of waking your suit up. And you just pop them, and it opens right up, and now it's an actual pocket you can put your hand in. I'm not going to count that as a seam, even though they do it in the factory. I'm just going to assume they're already popped. Yeah, that's my favorite part of a suit is waking it up. When you get a new suit, you have to go through, rip all the pockets, steam it, make sure there's no creases that you don't want. Yeah. Well, TLC goes a long way. Pockets, inside or outside? I'm going to start on the inside. I'm going to rip off this lining piece, and then we'll kind of dig it out from there. Yeah. Interesting. In this pocket, we have black thread and we have white thread. Is that the same seam? No, it's not. Oh, and there's gray thread. A couple different machines sewed this. Yeah, I'll use a seam ripper. Okay. They did backstitch, but it's a bigger stitch length in the pocket than the rest of the suit. But it's sewn on a fold, so you're unlikely to get a hole. And it's easy to repair if you do. I'm so mad. I busted my seam ripper along the last live stream, and I didn't bother to get a new one because I normally just use razor blades, but I'm trying to do this as nicely as I can. So that's one seam. Iana, if the jacket was constructed well. Yes, it was. It was constructed very typical. Like there's ways to like upscale it easily by increasing the thread. I'd say quality or colors like a little bit tighter than what it currently is at, but it's not bad. It really isn't. And doing some denser stitching, more custom fit. There's ways to definitely increase the quality of this, but all in all, it is a very well constructed jacket. I think it's very formulaically made, and I think the formula works. And I think the suit overall reflects a good representation of a generic general suit, even though it was a child's one. But I do think the feature of the elastic waistband should be an adult feature. I'm just saying, elastic's comfortable. Those little claspy, clicky things that you have on a rental suit, those things are bulky and cumbersome and annoying, and they make you look bigger than you are. I know it's supposed to be so that it fits multiple sizes, but those things are ridiculous. You guys know what I'm talking about? There's these weird clippy things that you can alter the size of a pant like up to about 8 inches, because I think it's about 4 inches on either side. So it increases the circumference about 8 inches on the waistband. So it makes like a pair of pants fit a wider array of people. And then you only have to look at the leg length when you're renting suits, which is really cool, but it's bulky and annoying, in my opinion. And I would rather spend the money and get a suit that fits, even if it's a cheap Amazon suit, than a rented suit with those bulky, clicky things. But that's my own personal opinion. All right. This again is one whole seam that goes all the way around the pocket because they do it on the fold, which means that you're less likely to get a hole. But they used white thread, so that's kind of they could have used black and then it would have been more professional, but it's It's on the inside and on the inner lining, so no one's going to see it, but I did because I peeked. So I just did 2 seams. I'm not going to put these in the bag yet because I haven't fully counted the pieces and I need to check my work, even though I haven't been doing it the whole time, but I can. All right, so we ripped out the lining, pocket to nowhere. Oh, this pocket's very similar to the other pocket we had ripped off on the inside. See how it has this piece that's folded? It has that same piece on this one, but they added this extra little lip or tongue. Reminds me more of a tongue because it's red. So put that over there so I don't get the pieces confused. And I'll rip off the tongue. Sounds so brutal. Oh. This is simply complicated. It's the most simplistic way this could be constructed. But it's very complicated because, oh, look at that. So to make sure that they had a nice clean corner, if you look really closely, see how that corner's all wrinkly like that? But it has a very narrow seam allowance. The wrinkles are the fabric kind of folding in on itself to make room for it. But it has a narrow seam allowance, so it's not too much of it, so you can get a clean round corner. So instead of trimming the corner, like cutting into it like a square box, they just did a narrow seam allowance on this whole piece. And this piece, yep, ripped off the seam to rip it off, has 1 seam this whole piece. But there's 3 pieces of fabric that were cut in this. There was the lining, which is the red, the interlining, which is the black, which is a non-woven fabric with little sticky glue dots on it that's been melted to this fabric so it's not so drapey, gives it a little more structure and support, and then our outside fashion fabric. So 3 different layers in this one piece and 1 seam. So 3 pieces, 1, 2, 3, and 1 seam. Yep. That's the tongue for this little pocket. Still looks like a perfectly normal functioning pocket. But now, that's probably why it had that little tongue, because when it hangs, it just naturally kind of hangs open. And although there's fabric on the inside, you don't want to see the black pocket part. So that tongue completely makes sense on a bigger pocket at the bottom of a shirt. Okay. Now to rip off this double welted pocket piece. Okay. The top seam was all sewn together with the tongue piece. So this seam, oh, I ripped the fabric, not the thread. That's not good. Oh, there we go. Okay. That was cut very close into the corner. Okay. So this piece looks almost exactly like, are they even the same size? This one's ever so slightly bigger, just like 1/2 centimeter bigger. One of them goes in one of them. We'll figure it out. Yeah. So ripped off that pocket. And now there's no pocket left. It's just a hole. And they cut notches, a little triangle. So they cut the center seam into a triangle for the seam allowance of this pocket. Not bad. So it matches the seam allowance of this pocket, which is 2 more pieces because we have the fusible interface. Yeah, this is interfacing. because it's on a facing instead of this was interlining because it's on the inside of the lining. I feel like there's such interchangeable terms, but they have very more specific meanings. But so this is 2 pieces that need to get cut out. Okay, that's only 1 pocket, and we have 6 pieces for 1 little pocket, but they're all little rectangles, so it's not too crazy. All right. Now we have this pocket because this one's gone. How many pockets on this side? Oh, I thought that was a stain for a second. It's just a thread. I'm covered in these threads, but that's because I'm ripping this apart. So I assume this one's the same, but I'm going to rip this one out and then I'll rip that one out. I'm going to rip out the top stitching first. Top stitching because you can see it on the front of the fabric, and they did it in the gray stitching right here and right here. You don't see any on this edge or this edge, but you do see it on the sides. And that's what I'm ripping out, is the top stitching. They even do it in a little zigzag pattern with the gray thread. Means it wasn't necessarily sewn on a straight stitch machine. That's a clear thread. It's not a gray thread. There's a gray thread. There's 2 rows of stitching. There's an inside row of stitching, and there's that outside row of stitching. And the outside row of stitching is out of a clear plastic, probably a nylon or a polyester, but it's a clear thread. And then there's a gray thread that I just ripped out at that same time. So, It does have a nice, neat finished edge for an exposed top stitch seam. All right. The corners are folded in. This is where it was stitched along these edges, ever so slightly tapered. Let me take the pocket, the inside pocket off, so I can get to the rest of it. Okay. There's where they started and stopped, so I'll start and stop there too. A nice little knotted jumble mess at the beginning is going to keep it in nice and tight. But also it's nice to get past it because you can just pop the seams. At least you're supposed to be able to pop the seams. Why? Oh, they did a little back stitch there. I see. Got a lot of creaking joints. What's going on? I haven't been paying attention to the chat. Hello, everybody. Hello, 45th Clown and Danda's Junk. And happy birthday to your puppy, Miko. Okay. Okay. Jeez, the person did not want this one coming undone. They backstitched at the corners, but it's still the same line of stitching. And there was another row in the top, so I just ripped out 2 rows of stitching. But I'm still doing this one row because the corners. Ugh. Look at, I shredded the fabric instead of the seam right here. See how it's still stitched right here because the fabric shredded. because that's a back stitching, and that's why it locks your stitches in place. Did a very good job. Okay. All right, another pocket removed. Let me get this little flap. Orientation is important. So the flap is open and there's nothing in the pocket. So it looks like it's tacked down just at the corners. Let me rip that out. One of our safety personnel was talking about getting better vests and was describing how better sewn the new ones would be. You immediately came to mind while I was listening. Well, thank you, Dan Does Junk. Yeah, no, it makes big differences. Little things make big differences. Why do you think blue jeans were such a big deal? They had a good heavyweight fabric. They had riveted seams. What are riveted seams? Reinforced seams that at the points that they get tugged on the most, they put a little metal thing to reinforce that so that you can pull your pants on better. So little details and extra lines of stitching, they really do help a garment function better. And the materials you use do make a garment function better. Like I said, 60-40 is the magic combination when it comes to shirts, like dress shirts. What's 60-40? What? 60% polyester, 40% cotton. 60% polyester because it's going to be color fast and it's going to be wrinkle resistant. But you don't want it 100% polyester because then you're going to stink. It's just going to get hot and sweaty and it's not going to breathe and it's going to be uncomfortable. So you want it to be breathable, and that's why you put the 40% cotton, because it breathes, it's a comfortable fabric, and it's strong. So yeah, I think the materials that you use and then the quality of the stitching, it doesn't have to be expensive, but well made is well made. Yana Lith, I'm organizing my Lego and my back hurts. Make sure you do it with good posture because otherwise you'll be fighting the hump. I always think about that when I'm sewing because I'll get really into it. I'm like, wait, sit up straight. Okay. All right. Okay. They have a piece of horsehair braid. Is that what you call it? It's just a woven heavy. This is kind of a crunchy is how I would kind of describe it. A crunchy ribbon. It's very rigid. And that has these little glue sticky dots holding it in place. And it was wrapped around that to give a really crisp little top of the pocket. So these are 2 more pieces. Okay. Make sure it's in the right pile. This pocket is gone. Now there's no pockets. I already ripped off the buttonholes when I removed the lining, so that's why there's these weird holes. But 1 more pocket to go. Let's see. Dan Does Junk. The vests get worn and torn easily because they actually fit quite loosely on you so they can snag on stuff easily, especially when you store small tools onto them. Yup. I know a lot of people who use fishing vest or cargo vest that have all the pockets and then they're reinforced and they're like a handy tool. It's just like extra pockets. Those things are the best when you have to work with a bunch of little pieces and tools. Okay, I just ripped out one seam. I have to keep track of this because I'm just going to get going and then I'll forget to say. Yeah, no, a loose fit is going to bag around. I can see that being uncomfortable. It's easy to take it in on the sides though. At the shoulder seam and the sides, kind of pinch it to where you need to go, and it's a straight stitch and a straight stitch, and you don't even have to worry about like cutting it. You can just leave the excess there to get a better fit. Oh, what? Okay. There's so many tangles inside of here. Okay. Pocket out. Seams are ripped. So we have one more piece for the pocket. All of these little spider webs, you guys can't see them, but they are everywhere right now. Good thing I'm wearing black. Can't see the black ones. You can see the white and the gray ones and the red ones, but can't see the black ones. This pocket. So I ripped out the lining. Still have the little flappity thing going on right here. Let me get that off. Oh, I love it. Look what I found. That is that pencil or pen? It's not bled through to the front. I think it's a pen. It's a pen mark saying 61 is what I'm going to guess, or is it 19? I love it. A human has made this and touched it. Somebody's communicated information about their patterns to another person that had to sew these patterns. The other pocket didn't have it. So it might have been this top stack and only one of them has it. So it's like, whatever. Luck of the draw, whether yours has it or not. But interesting. I love seeing little things like that. Proof a human made this thing. You don't just push a button and this automatically happens. Danda's junk. I'm lucky mine's still in pretty good condition. Apparently we get new ones every year based on hire dates, so I'll be getting a new one in May. Oh, awesome. No, it makes a lot of sense. Safety vests, they get faded in sunshine super easily. Like you compare yours from this year to yours next year. You might think, oh, they're just like, if they got the exact same one, they're not going to be the same shade of yellow. Those neon dyes, they are pretty resilient and they are going to last for years, but I could see for safety reasons replacing them. All right, this is 3 pieces again because we have the interlining, the lining, and the fashion fabric. And they sewed this together using gray thread and black thread. I didn't pay attention. Oh yeah, the top needle thread and the bottom needle thread had 2 different colors on them. They took the effort to make sure that this side had the gray side and this side had the black side. It is a detail on the front as a feature. A pocket is a feature. So they took the extra effort to make sure that the threads were the right colors on the right pieces. Interesting that they chose black instead of red, but this is a deep red and black is going to disappear. So makes sense. But the bobbin and the top thread were not the same. 1, 2, 3 pieces. 1, 2, 3 pieces and 1. Okay. Let me rip off the double welting. Oh, I'm careful so I don't rip the tip. So we have a double welted pocket. Here's our little double welted piece, this little rectangle. They probably have a whole little station where they just sit and make little pockets. And then you go get a bin and you pick out a pocket and then put it in your stack of jackets. But it's very clean and neatly done. Interesting, that's a black piece of thread on a big, that was the inside. Okay, that makes sense, that was under the flap. All right, pieces, so that's 2 more pieces because we have the interfacing and the welt. Oh my gosh, it would be interesting to go, okay, let's label these pieces now. I'm not going to do that, not right now. I need to get over just ripping this thing apart. But going back, all right, so this is your pocket flap for the center front pocket, the top pocket, and so you have to differentiate where all these different pieces go. Bodice, center front, center back, side front, and how you label the pieces based on their positioning and how many seams you end up adding, whether it's a front or a side front or a side seam or a side piece, depending on how many seams you add. But what's nice is that all these pieces probably do have a name. Makes me think of Pocahontas right there. Every piece has a spirit, has a name. All right, I'm going to rip off these sleeves now. I want to rip these sleeves off. Question, was this attached all at the same time? Okay, where did they start? It looks like they started the underarms because the seams overlap like this, right at this underarm seam. So I'm assuming they started here. It's the gray thread. It's back stitched right before we get to this big complicated wad of a shoulder pad. There's definitely a back stitch right here at the beginning of it. So did they attach it separately or second one? And okay, so this was sewn on second. It wasn't one seam continuous. Okay, that was what my question was. What was my question? Did they sew on the arm and then put on this part, or did they sew this part on while they sewed this entire seam? And my guess would be they sewed the seam on and then attached all of this secondary. I'm guessing this because it looks like, see how there's this little slub right here? That's the back stitching. And right here at the very top of it, it diverges into 2 different paths. One that goes under and then one that goes through. On this side, it lines up perfectly. So they did the same seam. Actually, no, I lied. Where they diverge, there's 2 different, so there's this row of seaming and this row of seaming. One shade is slightly darker than the other of the threads. So that was not the same sewing machine. These were ever so slightly different threads, but they're definitely different threads because one's slightly darker and one is slightly lighter. I know, ever so much, but so there is one seam and after it was all attached. But I want to rip this seam off, trying to keep the sleeve on so I can see how many layers are in here, because there seem to be a lot. Okay, so this piece and this piece were sewn together. So these, so these three pieces, this little black piece that you can easily just forget even existed, which is the tab that the lining was attached at, the shoulder pad that has three pieces to it, it is layered so that the pieces don't all line up in one spot, so that you don't get you get a tapered effect and you don't get a harsh stop and drop point, so that you get a more natural looking shoulder. So that's trimmed away at this seam allowance and trimmed away at this seam allowance. So it's three different pieces all lined up together. Wait, 4 little pieces, 5 little pieces. So they do 1, 2, 3 little layers of felt that are just spray glued. That's definitely spray glued together. And they make a little sandwich to make it into a shoulder pad. This is as basic of a shoulder pad as you possibly can get, but shoulder pads are basically constructed in this exact manner. You need to have the tapering and the bulk in the center so that it can give you a strong shoulder without a really sharp drop, because little things like that matter. And then this was sewn on the other side of the seam, and it gives more structure and support to the inside. So you get a little bit more puff and stand in the sleeve itself. So there's the shoulder pad, and then there's the under piece. I don't know what this piece is called, but it does have a name. I told you all these pieces have names. Get sewn right up on the inside under part of that to give it the support to the sleeve cap itself. So this is on your shoulder, and this is supporting the sleeve, but they're all sewn in the same seam. And see, the excess sticks out towards the sleeve, and it's on the under part. Okay, these count as pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Yep. And so those were attached after this was attached. And you see how there's still a piece on here? This is a piece of denim. No, not denim. It's not denim. It is just a piece of scrap suiting. It's a dark, heavyweight fabric, and it's on the sleeve side where this piece was. These pieces were both sewn on the under inside, and this gives the support to the cap of your sleeve. Now, when you feel on your jacket, you'll go, oh, that's where the shoulder pad ends, and this is where it's a little bit of the sleeve. This piece was sewn on separately than these pieces, but after the sleeve was attached. It's probably A, to mark where you have to add the shoulder pads, but also I think it's more a lighter weight support and a tapered edge. See these pieces, they fit together really nicely. I think this is just to support the actual sleeve. This piece must be important, otherwise I could see them completely leaving it out. Let me see where it's attached, and if the sleeve starts to come apart, it might give me more questions than answers. There's 2 rows of stitching that go through it. Okay, there's a notch right here on the sleeve cap, right before where this blue thing starts. And it meets up at a jointed seam. So that is definitely an indicator right at the underarm where these 2 seams meet up, so that point is right where it ends. So there's logic to this. Do I 100% get it yet? No, but if I have to build this, it'll make a lot of sense when I have to put it back together, or when I'm running around and I decide, oh, I can leave that off, and then you find out, oh, that's why they had it there. Let me try and take off the sleeve without taking off that blue piece, if it's still attached. Okay. Okay, so this is still attached to the sleeve itself. So I think what they did is they did their easing. That makes sense. Okay, this piece makes sense. They eased the sleeve to this little piece of fabric before they attached it so that they could get their... What is easing? Easing is you kind of smoosh it so that it fits. They do the cap of the sleeve ever so slightly bigger than where it actually sews in, so that when you kind of gather it, it gives you room for not being a flat tube. Best way to describe this. Okay, so this jacket here has gathers and puff on the sleeve. It is a velvet, so you guys cannot hardly see this. This jacket does not have any puff to the sleeve at all. But in order to get this sleeve to fit into this sleeve hole, and it fits your arm in here too, they make it slightly bigger and then stitch it and gather it into the seam, and they just kind of smoosh it so you don't really get any gathers, but it gathers it into the right shape. So that's what they did on this piece. They gathered the sleeve cap in a different factory step, and then they attached the sleeve, and then they added the shoulder pads with the tab before they added the lining. So, okay, yay! And you can even see how it's gathered on this side, but not this side? See that? That means it was bigger, and they gathered it so that it cups the sleeve. Turn this right side out. See the sleeve right here? They smooshed it and smooshed it so that it goes this. Okay, ooh, these little fibers. Okay, so I'm going to leave that piece attached because I like seeing the easing on it. And I ripped it slightly off here, so it does come apart. But this is a two-piece sleeve where they have a separate underarm seam from the upper arm, which makes it lay nicely. And it has 3 buttons because it's 3-button fancy. It's kind of left over from, again, black velvet, this era of buttons. This one's a fancy one. It has 4, and it goes onto my hand. So it's kind of like those big pirate cuffs around 1700s. But this evolved into this, and then this evolved back into that, fashion. So let me rip off this piece of the sleeve. Where is... Oh my gosh, I am covered in thread. did I put my... I have another seam ripper. Yay, I don't have to use the broken one anymore. Okay, let me rip this out. Oh, I have to take these buttons off. I thought I could avoid it. I can't. It's okay. One. These buttons were sewn on with a sewing machine. They took off the feed dog so that they didn't push the sewing machine forward, and they set it to a zigzag where it goes back and forth and back and forth. If you do that at home, I suggest using a toothpick over the top. So you put your button in and you adjust your zigzag so that it matches the width of your buttonholes. And it goes back and forth and back and forth. If you put a toothpick there, it'll give you a little bit more of a shank, so it'll be easier to get your buttons on and off. What's a shank? It keeps your buttons from being completely flat and tight to your garment so that there's room for the fabric to slip underneath there. But when they're just decorative like these ones, they don't need to have that functional shank. So they can be just sewn flat. Okay. And here's the underarm sleeve piece. And it has an interfacing right on the inside of the cuff to give it a nice clean supported edge. So that's two pieces. And then this piece also has the interfacing, and it has the extra piece of scrap fabric for the sleeve cap easement. Sleeve cap easement sounds so fancy. So that's 3 pieces. Okay. And now we have almost a vest. Let's get the sleeve off. Yeah. Start with the They used a much larger stitch length, but it gets eaten up in the thickness. So the top of this is a lot tighter stitching than the edges of it. Oh. Is that sewn separately? Trying to think, when I sew on sleeves, it kind of depends, honestly, which type of sleeve I sew on. Okay, there's a million exceptions to every rule. You have to know the rules to break them. Just trying to think of, as a rule, no, I don't. Every situation is different. Okay. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Let me remove these buttons. I love how when they stitched on this one, they just kind of, you guys can't really see that, but they went, woo. They just kind of came over here, swirled a little bit, and went back to their seam allowance. So they start with the wider seam allowance, they and went to the straight seam allowance, right where the buttons are supposed to be. All of this feels like experience, like they've done this a million times, which is what factory work is. Let's all just do this a million times and get it done faster. But instead of free time, we just end up with more things. Oh, geez, these are unwell. Not a bad thing. Okay, well, those fell on the floor. One, two. So this is 2 pieces. I'm going to rip off this piece off of this one so we can compare the shapes. Oh, I love it. There's also a piece on this, a number. This says 5. At least I'm assuming that's a 5. Because this way, where is it? That way. And it's definitely pen and not pencil. But look at humanity. Somebody touched this. So this is 1, 2 more pieces. I have not been keeping track of how many seams I ripped out. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know how many seams I've ripped out, but I know how many pieces we have. So we're going to just keep going with that because there's a lot of pieces. There goes the button. And now we have a vest. All right. I'm going to go for the collar next. Let's turn this lapel this way. So here's our jacket, and we're going to turn it and keep turning so that this lapel right here is inside out like this. That's pretty crazy that this whole piece is all sewn up into here, and then it flips out to be that. So from this to that, crazy. I always think it's like a miraculous change when you start to flip things inside out. All right. Let's just start ripping. Oh, wow, there's some red thread in here. Okay. And we have the left lapel. Is it the left lapel? I just wanted to say left lapel. But look at this, has been cut and steamed and cut and steamed. This corner has been trimmed this way so that it can get folded in this way. And this seam allowance has been cut thin so that it turns easily inside out. The pocket was marked, and it's fully lined with the non-woven, yeah, that's definitely non-woven, lightweight fusible interfacing. So that's 2 pieces. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. Okay. It's so simply complicated how this lapel is attached to this collar. It's missing on this side. All right, let's work off this side too. Oh, this is like super sewn on. I think this seam has been sewn very many times because I ripped it out with the lining. I ripped out seams where the lapel was attached, and there is still, there's red stitching in here, there is gray stitching in here. There is a lot of stitching on that collar. Buttons are still attached. Let me remove those. Okay, and this is the other lapel, which is 2 pieces. Now we have a collar that is just barely still attached. Okay. Okay. So there's a lot of layers in here. This is a heavy, sorry, I need to sneeze now that I said it. Anyways. This is a heavy woven interfacing. Don't worry, we're only live. That's interesting. Interesting. What's interesting? Okay, so this is a stand collar. It's a rolled over stand collar, but it's a suit jacket collar. This collar needs to go around a neck and fold over. So in order to do that, there's a lot of layers in there. And you know when you like fold it, I was going to say fold a sandwich, but whose folds a sandwich? You know, roll up a tortilla full of stuff. As you roll, the inner parts are going to push the other parts out and smoosh it around, and it's not going to lay in a straight line when you start adding all these different layers and rolling and folding them over. The outer folds are going to be longer than the inner folds, or vice, you know what I mean? So with all these layers in here, they have been trimmed to the same length, but when you flatten them out, they're not the same length. And they also have been trimmed and top stitched. Yeah. And the way they folded the seam allowance, this seam allowance is folded flat, but this seam allowance is all pressing down. The engineering of collars has always fascinated me. Yeah, you have top stitching only in the center, but not on the parts. That's not top stitching, that's understitching. But the seam allowance in the center back of the collar has been stitched on the inside seam. So the collar folds over like this and around your neck. Okay, so this is the way it fits. And just from here to here where your neck is, on the underside, there's a row of top stitching. It doesn't extend the whole length of it. It stops right here at this part on both sides. That means that they want the seam allowance and this to stay put right here, because they don't just add these seams if they don't have to. All right, let's take this apart. They cut these corners. Didn't mean they made shortcuts. It means that they made sharp corners. There is a curve and a curve to the patterning. See, it's not a straight line. There's a curve and there's a curve, even on this side in the stitching. The pattern piece. Let's separate this. This stitching is a lot tighter stitching. I think it's because these are thicker layers that it's sewing through. What's interesting is they use two different fusible linings or interlinings. This one has a little bit more of a loft and a fluff, and it's a little more supple. This one is a little more rigid, but it's more cloth-like. Makes me think they did that on purpose. Now this seam was sewn and then both edges stitched down. So it makes a really clean seam right here with the double top stitching. Because you can see that from the front. I'm not going to rip off the double top stitching. I'm just going to leave it there and see if I can just get the seam sewn together. Yeah. But it was sewn and then it was top stitched. But that's a piece on the collar, so that's one. No, that's two, because got to count this yellow fabric. So 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces for that collar. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then let me get okay. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 more pieces. Okay. This looks so simple now. We have two. It's such a simple bodice pattern. It's literally the neck, center front. This gets folded over, but it's still the measurement, this piece. This shape. Very simple yet complicated, and I love it. All right. Let's go from the center front all the way around, center back, all the way back up to center front again. So let's detach it at the shoulders. Keep hiding my seam ripper from me. So that's a shoulder seam. This would be your bodice front with a dart. It's not a real productive dart. It's ever so slightly, it's more of a tuck, a pin tuck technically, but it looks like a dart. This is where you get the real fitting on a suit. If you need to get it to contour to any curves and you change your shape, that's what these darts are functional for. But generally they give you a good line. Sometimes just adding those vertical lines on a garment give you a visual structure and support. So that is two pieces right here, this piece and this. This is not the same that they used in the collar. They're different. They look the same, but they're different. They feel different. All of these interlinings kind of have different weights to them. So this one's kind of a lighter weight. This is a heavier weight. And this one feels ever so slightly heavier than this one. And this is all within the same garment. And then inside the pocket lining, we had a different interlining, which is a non-woven meltable kind. And then this one was a woven, fusible. Lots of fusible, which makes sense because you just melt it and it's stuck together and then you don't have to think twice about it and you don't have to sew it. So much fuzz. All right. Now, got the side back. It has a tiny piece of fusible interfacing on it, but the whole piece isn't. It doesn't need as much structure and support as the front lapel part. Makes sense. And here's the center back seam. Let me get started. So that's your center back. It is not interfaced except for at the hem for the little extra support. And this little flap. And the other side. Yeah, just a little pin tuck, not an actual functionable dart. You could if you needed to, but children, they're little rectangles, so they don't really need a giant functioning dart. So this is two more pieces. Just want to see if there's any like fancy registration marks or anything, but I don't really see anything super crazy. But this is the hem where it was around a curve, but then it needed to go into more of a supportive roll. So they literally just cut out this chunk, but leave this into the seam allowance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because of this piece. Okay, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55 pieces, people. 55 pieces. This jacket is officially in shreds. 55 pieces. What's this piece right here? This would be the front lapel. Not lapel. Yeah, lapel. Yeah. This is a pocket. This is a pocket. This is our center back. Now I'm guessing, nope, that is a, yeah, because this is the side flap, and this would be the center. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to compare was the shape of this sleeve with the little piece removed, and this piece removed, and this sleeve. Okay, so this is a sleeve with the ease stitches, and this is a sleeve that's just been sewn and smooshed. So it's a little bit bigger than what the measurement of the armhole is from here to here. There is definitely a notch here where it starts. So notch, and it ends right here at this corner piece. So from here to the notch is usually between less than an inch to up to an inch that you can have an ease. You can ease into the shoulder without really having a noticeable, but that is completely depends on the fabrics. You do have about an inch of wiggle room where you can make this ever so slightly longer or bigger than your armhole. So the measurements don't have to completely line up. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. But I love that I can see the little humanity in this creation, the number 5. Okay. Just sneeze, you're only live. I know, did it? It's been cold here. We're reorganizing our garage, and now we move around in here without tripping over anything. Yay for no tripping hazards. I've actually created more tripping hazards for myself because it is the holiday season, and I brought out all the holiday stuff, and now it's up, and now I have all these boxes to store, but I don't want to put away yet because all the stuff needs to go back into them in a few weeks. So could it just sit around for a few weeks? No, because people are going to be coming over for the holidays, so I have to organize my tripping hazards, and this room that I'm in is probably the worst. It's hard to be creative, but at the same time, I know where all my stuff is, so I can be really, like, I'm in the midst of a project, but I need to stop it so I can clean up. You know what I mean? I've been having to work outside in this cold. That sucks. I can't function when it's cold. Yes, dress warm. James Spokes. Hey, Felicia, loving the stream. It's almost 1 a.m. here in the UK, so I got to hit the sack. Take care. Well, thank you for watching. I finished stripping it apart, so I'm just about to call it a night myself. At Beside the Scenes Fashion told you, do I get a cookie now? What did you tell me? I missed it. I'm sorry. Dan does junk. What jacket? Oh my gosh, are you one of those people who run around in flip-flops and shorts in the winter? Because I admire those people, but I'm just not one of them. I get way too cold way too easily. Ionolith at Behind the Scenes Fashion. Well, we got a place to put our holiday bins. 45th Clown, do you have any Christmas projects planned? No, like I want to. I feel like I should. I have fabric, I have supplies, I have materials. I have a freaking laser cutter. And my creativity just kind of went. So I might be randomly going live soon with some random project that I decide to do. So kind of stay tuned. Make sure your things are clicked that need to get clicked in order to find out. But if you're here, you probably know. But I do have some filming equipment that I have to fix. I have these giant flags that need new duvetine applied to them. So I'm going to be doing that. I might be going live to do that, but it's not a Christmas project. That's just a random project that I was going to work on anyways. Yeah, I decorated my whole house. I don't have anything that I'm still currently like in the midst of doing, but I do like doing Christmas projects. So none that I know of yet, but we'll figure it out. Iana Lith at Behind the Scenes Fashions. A few weeks ago, when I predicted how many seams the jacket has. Sweet, you do get a cookie. Tell your mom and dad give you a cookie because you earned it. But 55 freaking seams for just the jacket, not including the lining. That's impressive. 55 pieces, because every piece needs to be attached and sewn in there, and it serves a purpose, and you have to think about it. You have to name it, you have to cut it out, you have to then sew it in and put it together. It needs. So I'm quite impressed. Yana, Behind the Scenes Fashions. Do you have Lego? Yes, I do have some Legos. I have a Harry Potter castle and a little Santa Claus and some other random ones. Lots of bits and pieces for sure. Yeah, so I guess it's late in the UK and we've been here for a little over an hour and we got the jacket completely ripped apart. I'm excited about that. Fun news, my friend Jody's going to be back, so she's going to be going live with me next time I go live, I believe. So we have that to look forward to. Yay, Jody. Thank you. Love you, Jody. Iana at Behind the Scenes Fashions. I have directions for Lego ornaments. Oh, that sounds awesome. I've been wanting to decorate a little tiny Christmas tree with Legos, see if I can make a little garland, put little mini figures in it, just kind of go a little crazy on it, but I haven't done it. It's just been in my head thing. Oh, there you go. There's the link. Thank you, Iana. Well, thank you guys for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed just ripping this poor suit apart. Where is it? I just saw it. And I have to give an extra big shout out and thank you to Dave Knottop. Go check out his channel. Knottop, Knoptop. He gave me this cool little button that says, go make something. So now I have to go make something. I ripped this thing apart. I'm not going to put it back together. It's not going to happen. And the pieces are for a child's suit. So it's not like I can refabricate a garment. But my hamsters are turning and they have a lot of ideas, but I keep thinking roses. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But thank you guys so much for joining me on this series. I appreciate you all showing up and being here. And I found this really fascinating. I love seeing the humanity in the creation of this project. I love the scalability of sewing. Like, I know everybody's different shapes, and the whole idea of ready-to-wear fashion is a modern concept, but it's a modern concept that has scaled in a crazy way to the detriment of our poor little planet. But it takes a human being to sew these seams, to design these patterns, to put this together. And I appreciate all the hard work that went into this suit that I just ripped apart tore it apart, ripped it apart. It is in shreds and pieces and shall never be worn. So thank you for joining me in this journey, and I hope you guys learned something. So until next time, bye. Hold on, I have to like dig out my computer and string.